Once again, this is Nuance, and I'm Mike Scala. We'll be speaking of the candidates raising money to run against Mayor Adams next year, and will Adams himself make it to the race? Interesting times in New York City and the US. Of course, I'm joined, as always, by Jay Carter, also known as Timid, the hip hop artist in the chair of BLM Tokyo, and I guess one third, one of the top songs on college rap radio in the US per Rap Attack Lives. What's going on, Jay?
Oh, yeah, I like that intro. Um, that's of course referencing the new college radio chart that just came out. You as another third
Mm-hmm.
of that. So yeah, just peeked into the chart. I'm interested in seeing how far up we're gonna get on this chart.
Right. So 30 songs on the chart. We are currently, what, number 28, I believe, but we are
Right.
listed as one of the new entries into the chart. So if you look, the top songs on there have been on the chart for a number of weeks. So the ones
Right.
who's entering the chart are coming in at the bottom of the chart. So hopefully, as the weeks go on, you'll see that song move up the charts.
Right. Right now the top song on the chart, the top 30 chart is Dreamin' by Common and Pete Rock.
Right. And it's funny,
Dope song.
I texted Andre. Have you heard that album yet, by the way?
Oh, absolutely. I've listened to it several times.
I texted Andre the chart and I was waiting for him to respond with some hate on Common, right? Like, oh, you're proud of being on the same chart with Common. You couldn't be Common because he's a known Common hater, as he mentioned on here before.
Oh,
But
God, hater.
yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. In fact, the first time I ever met Andre, he asked me about my rap style. Funny, what a world we live in, right? Because we were meeting about politics. He obviously is a well-known political consultant and very successful in the area, and he wanted to meet about possibly representing me. And so we chopped it up, talked about politics and community work and all kinds of things. But part of the conversation was hip hop, and he asked me, he's like, "I heard you got." I think the first thing he said to me was in that conversation, he said, "I heard you got some mixtapes out or something like that." And I was like, "Nah, mixtapes. I got albums. Like we actually drop real projects here." And he hadn't heard it yet, but he heard about it, and he asked me to name some artists I sound similar to, and I hate when people do that. But at the same
Yeah.
time, yeah, I mean, as an artist, it's hard for us to do that because we feel we're so unique, and we are. I mean, we all bring something different to the table. So for us to try to reduce ourselves, not in a bad way, but just as soon as you start comparing yourself to someone else, it kind of takes away from your identity a little bit, and it suggests that if you say like for example, my style has similarities to Common's, then if someone doesn't like Common, they're going to think that they're not going to like you, and that kind of
Right.
happened. Like I named a bunch of rappers, but Common was in there. I was like, kind of like that more like underground lyrical style, but not too underground. Kind of palatable. I said kind of like in the lane of a Common or something like that, and he didn't say anything at the time. It was our first meeting. I guess he was on his best behavior. But later on, he told me that when I said that, it made him think that my music wasn't going to be good because he doesn't like Common. And if I sound like Common, then I'm not going to be good either. And I'm just like, man, like, why did it's like a trap? Why do people set that trap? Like, you can't really win. When they ask you, who do you sound like? You can't really win.
Right, right. So, yeah. I love the album. I think it's dope. Um, I've noticed recently this year, and maybe I'm just paying a little bit more attention, but this year it seems like so many of the artists from back in the day are releasing music again.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the new Eminem project came out, right? The Common and Pete Rock got a new project out. LL Cool J has a new album. Um, MC Light has a new album. Exhibit is dropping a new album.
Right.
Paul Wall's got a new project coming out. Busta's got a new one. And I'm wondering if, the hip hop 50 from last year kind of like motivated people to get back in the
I
studio.
was wondering, yeah, when you just went through the list, I was wondering if there was something that was a catalyst to all that. Maybe
Right.
something to do with it. Do you think even the beef that we saw, I mean, as corny as some people, I know Questlove said it was corny,
Could be.
but it did kind of get people paying attention to lyricism again in some way. I mean,
It could be.
what's the name of that song? I forgot it already. The Kendrick song, "Not Like Us."
Not like us.
Yeah, that has been played everywhere. Like we mentioned, Democratic National Convention. That has
Right,
become
right,
the epitome of mainstream hip hop in the year
right,
2024. So I wonder if that has something to do with it because it kind of
right,
shifted the focus a little bit. And some of these more, I guess we call them legacy acts now, can come in and say, you know, we are still relevant. Our type of music still is relevant. It's
right.
a whole new genre.
B.O.B.'s got a new project out. Nappy Roots has got a new one. Bizarre is putting out a new one. Chip Food dropped some new one.
Yeah.
Dropped a new one. Like it's like everyone's like decided, or a lot of people have decided, you know what? I'm gonna get my pen out. Which I'm
Right.
I'm I'm cool with. I'm
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And
Let's have that.
we should be in a place where you can do your thing. I mean, it almost seemed for a while like maybe some of those type artists were being shunned because they were looked at as old or not cool, not current, not relevant,
Right,
right? Because what was more prominent changed in terms of the style and the sound. But I
right,
think we should be in a space where it's all welcome. Why does it have to be just one thing? And that's what hip hop
right,
was, right? If you go back to the early days, you had a variety of different styles out
right,
there.
right,
It shouldn't be like, oh, you sound like you're old, or you sound like you're this. You know, why can't it be you're doing you? And again, that goes back to the original point. It's hard as artists to compare ourselves to anyone else. We want to be in our own lane, and we should be able to be in our
right,
own lane. But I also understand, like you see, like on CD Baby and some of these sites, they say, "Oh, you should be able to give your elevator pitch and say exactly which other artists you sound like in 10 seconds." Like, it's icky to hear that kind of thing. But I also get why
right,
they say that because people don't have time to, I guess, to discover new people from scratch. Like they want everything kind of summed up neatly. Like, oh,
right.
this is a new artist. What is he like? What is she like? Who is she like? So I don't know.
Yeah,
And maybe even in politics, I feel like I should let other people do that for me. I kind of feel the same way in music. It is uncomfortable for me to put myself in a lane or put myself in a box. I'd rather have the pundit to do that and say, he's because as soon as you start doing, like I said, as soon as you start labeling yourself anything, it's like you're setting up these expectations that may not really be an accurate depiction of who you are.
right.
You know what I mean? You call yourself
Ah,
and think about in politics, you call yourself either progressive, moderate, or conservative, right? You pick one of those three. Now that becomes your brand, and everything you say, it's supposed to be in line with that. It may not represent who you are. It almost discourages you from having original thoughts.
right, right. So now I know MC said one of the motivations for her to put out an album because she hasn't put out one in a long time, and a lot of these artists haven't. Was LL Cool J getting on her like, what are you doing? Why aren't you dropping nothing? Like, and distinctly remember last year during the Hip Hop 50 where LL was on stage and he chastised rappers, and I think he was kind of talking at Jay-Z, but it was a blanket message about, like, what are you doing? Like, get out here and celebrate this and put in, be a part of it. Just because you're something else now, don't distance yourself from hip hop, and so that was a message that kind of went out viral that he put out there because he's got a long career and he was out there on these tribute shows performing as well. Like, but
Is it Ice
Jay-Z
T?
was no LL.
Oh, LL. Okay.
LL, yeah. But Jay-Z was noticeably absent at all of the Hip Hop 50 celebrations. And there were probably several others as well. And LL kind of was like, listen, this is who we are. Like, don't just because you're doing this now, don't distance yourself from this history and the culture.
Right.
And
Right.
so I think, I wonder if that kind of message also helped the celebrations of Hip Hop 50, LL calling out in public, the beef recently that was basically about the culture. Just all of that probably is a catalyst here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm here for it.
Me
I remember
too. Me
Ice
too.
Cube. I think you were at an Ice Cube event when he put out one of his albums a while back.
Yes.
And someone even asked him that question. You are in movies now. You're so successful in business and other ventures. You don't need to rap. Why are you putting out another hip hop album? And I believe his answer was because I'm a b-boy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then, yeah, that's the energy that I like to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's a good thing. And get more good music out. Like the Common Pete Rock album to me is dope.
I did enjoy it, and I think that "Dreamin'" that you saw on the chart there is the first song, right? That's the intro of the album.
I don't remember what the track order of it.
I believe
Um,
that's the first song that comes on. I was kind of surprised that that was the single that was the number one song on the college radio chart. But all those songs are nice. I heard them in the car, and
yeah,
it is nice. I think we talked about that a little bit on here once before, where he's doing a lot of wordplay on this. It's kind of like
right,
almost rapping for the sake of rapping, but not in a bad way. I know sometimes that
right,
can be used in a derogatory manner, but I mean almost like he's doing it as like a sport, and it's
right,
fun to observe someone exhibiting the skills at that sport, right, or at that activity. So
right,
it's actually refreshing in a sense. And plus, he's doing it with Pete Rock providing the backdrops, and so the songs are good.
right,
It's not like just mixtape rapping, not just spitting random 16s. It's put together well, in nice. Again, that's what I was saying before. The kind of like that underground aesthetic of rapping, but in the context of more commercially palatable songs, if you wish. It's not too obscure. It's easy to listen to.
yeah.
I like that.
And it could also be that he's Redman is another one who keeps putting up content
And he
recently.
was putting out those freestyles, right? Those verses over other beats. And from what I hear, oh, you just froze there, Jay. From what I hear, he is editing his own videos, which is actually kind of cool too. Back,
Yeah.
back to life.
Um, yeah. So it's yeah, the I actually just saw a freestyle of that. He was on a plane and just like everybody was on that plane. It was Jazzy Jeff, was Big Daddy Kane, was who else was on there? Um, I can't remember. There's just a gang load of people on that plane. But it was yeah, it was crazy. But just him doing freestyles.
Right. And also someone who now is dabbling in politics, right? Which is kind of cool. When
Right.
I was up in Albany, I believe it was last year, I was watching a live stream of Senator James Sanders, our local state senator here, his press conference he was doing in Albany. And I think I was in the Airbnb getting ready to head back to the Capitol and do some more work on that weekend. So I kind of had this live stream playing on my phone in the background while I was moving around. And all of a sudden, I heard like, "Hi, I'm Reggie Noble," and so it was. I was like, "Whoa!" Whoa! I looked at the phone. It was Redman standing there with the senator giving a speech about the legalization of marijuana and the political party, third party that he was involved in the founding of to push basically to end the prohibition nationwide of marijuana.
Right.
And that was crazy.
Wasn't he at that New York meeting?
That's what I said. I was watching this press conference, and all of a sudden I hear, "Hi, my name is Reggie Noble." And I look, and there's Redman standing there giving the speech. And he didn't even introduce himself as Redman. He was just there as Reggie Noble, part of this new political party. I was like, that's crazy. And you see him back in the studio doing music at the same time. I mean, that's really cool how people can put
Right.
people together.
And I wonder, like you mentioned, him dropping these freestyles, the way that Common may be rapping on the new one. I wonder if it's that, they're not chasing the chart. They're just creating. They're not
Oh, right.
feeling that pressure of trying to make a hit with maybe they're not under like a major label that's
Label.
trying to force
Yeah,
them
right.
to.
And the industry has changed now because you have everything on streaming. And like we have talked about on here before, you can find your audience, right? It's not like it was before where it had to fit into that model where, you sign to a major label, they put pressure on you to put out a certain type of song and they wanted the hits to sound all the same because they were tried and true and they were taking a big gamble on, putting a lot of
Right,
money behind a song or a project. They want to make sure it's a safe bet. They don't really want to take any risks. Now it's just so different. Now you have so much better data available to you as an artist, and you can do it independently. You can just target your demographic, your audience. It isn't like it was before,
right,
where it's like you got to try to put a song on the radio or a video on MTV. And it's got to hit with a certain crowd. It's got you got
right,
basically you're targeting it to the crowd that's already watching or consuming those platforms. Now
right,
you can direct your art to the people who like that. I mean, it's not a matter of trying to make it for a predetermined set audience, right? Now you can actually make the music you want to make and put it in front of your audience, the people who would like that. And that's really, I think, a game changer.
Right. Yeah. So, interesting time for new music. I think it's cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I was mentioning before we went live here, I got a funny comment on one of the shorts. And I think this relates back to the theme that comes up a lot on Nuance, which is it's kind of unfortunate that we do live in a more fast food society. You know, everything has to be digestible into small little clips. And so you see that on social media. Obviously, one of the drawbacks I think is when you're posting up content for your music or for really whatever you're doing on social media, the way to get organic growth and discovery is through the short form content primarily, right? And so you have these little small TikTok videos or small YouTube shorts or what have you. And so, of course, I've been doing that with the music. One of them that I posted was like, you know, like a 15-second clip from my verse on Handcuffs, I think. And it had some context on there. And I think it had some of the music video playing in the background. But it was basically a way to entice people to listen to the song, which has been very effective. However, there's one guy, I think it was a guy, commented, I guess he didn't really understand what was going on because he only saw the 15-second clip and didn't really get that that was the first verse of a larger song about systemic racism and police misconduct and so forth. And from that
Right.
15 seconds, I gather he seemed to think that it was just me rapping straightforwardly. Like it was just a guy rapping. Like so the bars
Right. Right.
like what just me spitting bars, not playing a character, not setting up
Right.
a narrative, right? So he left me this long comment and it started off by saying like, people, I know people are tired of mumble rap now, but this is my problem. Maybe I should pull up the comments so I don't misquote him, but it was kind of funny. He compared it to mumble rap, and he was basically saying that this is why he likes mumble rap because of, and that he was like, he's like the stuff you're
You
doing,
can't understand it.
he can't understand what I'm doing, yeah. But he was like, it's good. He's like, you're flowing and everything. It's nice. But he's like, I played it like 1,000 times and I can't understand what you're trying to say. Like what's the point of saying that? And he was like, it sounds like rap for middle-aged white guys or something like that. And I'm like, this guy is really taking these words literally. Like this is like an anthem for people who want to see people get accosted on the street. So what are you talking about? So
Right. Right. Right.
so let me see if I can find this comment. It's kind of funny. I haven't responded back because now this the other thing is they say you should respond back to all the comments you get, which is kind of new because I guess it's for the sake of the algorithm and boost the engagement or whatever. So if someone leaves a crazy comment, you're supposed to kill them kindness, I guess. Um, that's new.
Yeah, it helps with engagement. It helps. I think it also helps to establish that it's a live person behind it.
Right, I guess.
Uh,
It's it's a departure from how it used to be where artists were, I guess, allowed to be a little bit more mysterious and I have to engage with everybody, especially people who leave obnoxious comments. This one wasn't obnoxious, this was just a little ignorant. But let me so I go to shorts. Okay, here
yeah,
this is the one where it says, what if a dirty cop did gangster rap, right? So trying to put something in there that's going to get people's attention and they can look at it and be like, oh, what is this? This is like some, I think you call it some meta type stuff, right? So one of the comments, okay, here it is. I now understand what people say when they say everything new sounds like mumble rap. I think it's really okay. This guy might be high, come to think of it. Looks like something you would say if you smoked a lot of weed. Because I now understand what people say when they say, because it's like very philosophical, but not really deep, but he thinks he's being deep. You know what I mean? I now
right,
understand what people say when they say everything new sounds like mumble rap. Because what does that mean? It doesn't sound like mumble rap at all. I think it's really about not understanding things generationally, regionally, but more importantly, not understanding the author's intentionality and point of view.
right.
Okay. With that said, oh, he added something, I think. Liberal-ish. That wasn't there before, I don't think. Did he just edit his comment? I didn't see that word before. Okay, that kind of changes the meaning. He said this is liberal-ish, middle-aged white guy mumble rap. Mumble rap. Wow. This is really the opposite of mumble rap. This is lyrical rap. I'm sure this go off for middle-aged white guys who have found success much in the same way as you. Oh, okay. In summation, it ain't for me. Sounds suspect as F, no pun intended. Huh? I did listen. Oh, suspect. Maybe he means suspect. Cop.
Right.
I did listen
Yeah.
to this clip an inconceivable amount of times while writing this comment. I stand by my analysis. Okay, again, liberalish, middle-aged white guy mumble rap. You've flown over the beat, though. I'll give you that. But I couldn't find an F to give about where you're coming from with it. So it sounds like he's confused.
Yeah, but he listened to it an inconceivable amount of times, so good for the algorithm.
Right, right. Yeah. Hey, yeah, the video is on fire. And I guess, we did see what, 27,000 views on the YouTube, which is nice. And like we said, cracked the top 30, the most played college rap radio songs in the country per Rap Attack Lives. So I did respond and I kind of gave a little bit more context about the song. So I'm not sure if they just didn't understand what was going on, but when I first read this, and I could be mistaken, I didn't notice that he said liberalish. So I thought that he was trying to say that it was straightforward, like I was just rapping straight up, like what I believed, not playing a character. So
Right.
if he says it's liberalish, middle-aged rap and mumble rap, what does that even mean? Like it's hard to even decipher what he really means by all that. How is it mumble
Yeah.
rap if he does get that it's expressing a political point of view, or it's about activism, because he called it liberalish. So I'm assuming he's connecting it to activism in some way.
Well,
Uh,
because maybe it sounds like he might get that you're playing a character,
mhm.
and pointing out an issue that's happening,
Right,
but I don't get where it's mumble rap or his
right,
comparisons to it being mumble rap. I
yeah.
mean, I get what he's
Okay.
trying to say as far as um there may be a generational divide, right?
Mm.
Some people don't get mumble rap because they don't understand where the artists are coming from.
Right,
Just
right,
like with this, he doesn't understand where you're coming from. So to him, maybe it sounds like this, like mumble rap would sound to like
right.
some fan of like
Yeah,
boom bap or something, of lyrical
yeah.
rap. So
Right.
maybe that's where he's trying
I
to say.
I kind of get that as a general premise, but if he understands it, because at first I thought he just didn't get it at all. But if he understands that there's a concept behind this, then it's hard to square that with I don't understand where it's coming from. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
So
who
it's
knows?
it's the internet, right? People will express all different kinds of opinions. Like I said, when you have that short form content, sometimes you're not seeing the entire scope of what it is, right? And I
Right.
even had that because I was trying different things out. I was posting up little clips of different songs, and for the first single I put out, I had the verses and I had my verse, different parts of my verse, Cool G Rap's verse, all different things. At one point, I put out the interlude part of the song, right? Like, oh, let me try a different part of the song now, and the part in the middle where I'm kind of like talking, not rapping, just speaking about the history of Raucus or whatever. This guy responds terrible, and it's like it's confusing to me because I'm not even rapping at that point. So does he think that that's me trying to rap and I'm just speaking there? You know what I mean? And so I commented again. You're supposed to respond to people now, say everything that they say, even if it doesn't make sense. So I responded and I was like, "Did you hear the song? Did you hear the full song so you can hear the raps?" He goes, "No, thank you." And so now I'm just thinking, all right, maybe this is just a troll, right? but it's also the meaning. Again, the context can get lost when everything is a soundbite. Everything is 15-second clip. That could be a
Right.
problem.
Right. Right. Right.
So,
So,
hey, my
well,
what we deal with as a society today.
yeah, is what it is.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, speaking of society,
what about the hip hop cop?
the hip hop cop.
Since we're transitioning and we're in hip hop, talking hip hop music,
Uh,
and one of our topics today was the so-called hip hop cop.
that was. Oh,
Yeah,
oh, you're talking about. Okay, you're talking about Eric Adams, your boy.
Eric Adams is supposedly the hip hop
Gotcha.
cop.
No, he's supposed to be the hip hop mayor.
I'm sorry, the hip hop mayor. Yes, my
The hip
bad.
hop cop is something else. That was when they actually
Right,
allegedly
right,
had
right,
police members who were investigating the hip hop movement, right?
right, right. So yeah, the hip hop mayor. My bad.
Yeah, the hip hop mayor, as he said. Yeah, funny. I wonder, is he really the first hip hop mayor? And I'm using that very
No,
charitably. The
the
first mayor from
cop.
the hip hop generation was I guess Bill De Blasio wouldn't be considered hip hop, right?
I don't think so. I don't. I mean, how is Eric Adams considered hip hop?
Because he grew up with hip hop, he likes hip hop, he can recite some Biggie lines, I guess.
I mean, is that, I mean, that seems to be like
It's a
the
low bar.
marker. Right, right. Can you recite a Biggie line? Like, oh, you're in.
Yeah, well, again, this is the world we find ourselves in. Right? What could I say? You know, I wish we had more substance too.
Yeah, right.
So
So,
yeah, so I'm looking at his and other candidates' fundraising numbers here because the reports are public now, so you can see where the candidates stand as of now. Of course, you have a plethora of candidates coming forward to say they'll run against him next year. As of now, he's saying he's still in, but can that change as reports like this continue to come out? It's possible, right? Because I don't think he's going to still be in the race if he sees all of his support erode. And right
right,
now, when you see the fundraising numbers come out, predictably, right after the indictment, his fundraising took a hit. And what if we're in a situation early next year, right? You know, we go into January, let's say, and you have other candidates outraising him to the point now where he's seen as less of a viable candidate. And then even his institutional support erodes. But if you have unions, for example, who backed him last time, who say, you know what, he doesn't seem as viable. I don't think he's going to win, perhaps, or even if they don't go that far, maybe they'll say we were kind of hesitant to not back him because he was the incumbent and we know the
right,
enormous power that incumbents have. But when you see things going the way they're going, maybe they'll feel emboldened. Maybe they'll feel safer to take that chance and try to prop up another candidate who seems to be on the bubble. So,
right,
what if that were to happen, right? What if he loses labor support? What if he loses the party's support? Would he still run? I think there's a very likely chance he doesn't at that point. So I say all
right.
this to say this is why we want to keep an eye on what's going on, for example, with the fundraising. And then you can see
And
perhaps, you know, which candidates are emerging as the leaders to challenge him, right? Because you might have a very crowded field initially, but when the fundraising comes out, it may show some are more viable than others to take him on.
right. And according to the article, at least the chart on here, he's got it quite at the present time, he's got it quite a comfortable fundraising lead here, whereas like they said he's about 4.1 million and the closest challenger is just under a million.
Right.
So at
However,
this
let's
point,
just be clear about what we're looking at. That is what has been achieved so far, right? And I believe it
right,
takes into account projected matching funds. Oh no, the above totals don't. Okay, so this chart doesn't. But in the article, they were taking into account projected matching funds because matching funds haven't been dispersed yet, but you can estimate what they're going to get. But
right,
okay, so on this chart that you're referencing here, it says the above totals don't reflect matching funds projected by campaigns. However, it does show the standings of where we are, taking into account that the mayor has been raising money for his reelection for years and his other
right,
candidates are just getting in. And so you can look at the fact that he has 4.1 million, as you said, compared to the next person is Brad Lander, the controller, with under a million. However, if you look at the money that was raised in the past period, I believe Adams was outraised by his opponents.
So yeah, yeah. So then that's what the point of the articles talk about here is kind of like his fundraising is slowing
Right.
and undoubtedly affected by the indictment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it says Adams brought in just over 146,000 in the most recent fundraising period when excluding returned donations, right? A lower
Mm,
intake than usual. And do we have numbers on the other? So here we go. So Lander is
right,
reporting 333,000 the last period, right? So we said
right.
Adams has more money
That's
total, but if you look at the
right,
last period, 333,000 for Lander to 146,000 for Adams. And so we have to see if this trend continues.
right. Yeah. I mean, he's still got a lot to make up, but the press, the negative press, and the stuff that's going to continue to come out over this indictment is definitely going to be something that hurts Adams and helps his opponents.
Right. And here's something to keep an eye on. Will he be eligible to receive matching funds? Right. Because part of the indictment is about uh, an alleged scandal concerning straw donors. Right.
Mm.
In other words, they're alleging that he essentially cheated the matching fund system by reporting donations from eligible donors, but that money didn't really come from them. It was either in larger amounts beyond what was eligible for matching or from sources who aren't allowed to give money for a matching contribution. So if it turns out that there are straw donors in this particular election cycle, right, then he may not even receive matching funds. That happened before with John Liu. When John Liu was running for mayor, there was a scandal about his fundraising, and the city came in and said, "You're not going to get matching funds now." Obviously, if you don't get the matching funds, that severely impacts your ability to run a citywide race.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a boost or a bonus.
Now,
Uh,
yeah,
no, go ahead.
there's something that we should mention. I know we covered it a while ago on here, probably over a year ago at this point, maybe even longer. Some people have this idea that if you are under indictment, you should not be eligible for matching funds and you should have to give back. I think some people are even saying you should give back your matching funds. We talked about that. I think we even had a poll on it, if I'm not mistaken, a while back. This is coming up again now, right? Because he's been indicted. They're
Right.
saying he should not be getting taxpayer money to run his campaign.
Right.
I think we had another attorney, Steve Bihar, on at the time, and I think we kind of agreed that while we understand the the desire to not reward someone with taxpayer money who may be doing these things, we want to keep due process in mind as well. And
Right. He hasn't been convicted
he
yet.
hasn't been convicted. He's been accused. He's been indicted, right? And we talked about the dangers of that kind of rule being in place because you could easily see, everyone trying to get someone in trouble in some way to freeze their matching funds, right, as a political
Mhm.
strategy. And so
Yeah.
we do want to make sure that this goes through the process. I can't co-sign this idea of you lose all of your ability to campaign once you've been accused. I think you should have to be convicted first. Then we can talk about what you have to give up.
Right. Yeah. And that, I wonder, that's kind of a question that's being had answered. Well, no, I was going to say it's kind of being asked at the national level too with Trump and his indictments, but he's already been convicted. So, and there's no NAP matching funds, but as far as just a
They
similarity
do
in
have, yeah,
campaigning and
it's not as
running.
robust. They do have a matching funds program for president. I'm not sure if he's tapped into it or not. It's weird that it always surprises me when I see that they actually do have a form of matching funds, but it's nowhere near the level that it is
In
at
New York.
yeah, where unless you're a Bloomberg and you can self-finance your campaign, you're going to rely on those matching funds, right? Because the alternative is coming up with many millions of dollars yourself.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So
So,
yeah, crazy time that we're in. Some of the other candidates we mentioned, Brad Lander has the head start against Adams. We also have former controller Scott Stringer. Interesting. I was reading this article. So he has a donation from Scarlett Johansson,
oh yeah.
and I was reading the history on that. Apparently, she has a twin brother. I don't know if you know much about the actress. I don't. I can tell you, I've heard the name here and there over the years, but I really don't know much
What?
at all.
Black Widow? Come on now. How do you not know Black Widow?
What's Black Widow? I never heard of that.
Oh my God.
What
She's
is
been
that?
playing that character for like over 10 years now.
On a TV show?
M- Marvel movies.
Oh, so in
She's
more than
also
one
in
movie.
Lost in Translation. She did Lucy. Yeah, she's a major actress. But
Lucy and Lost in Translation were Marvel movies.
no, those were not Marvel movies.
Okay. So which Marvel movies has she been in?
She's been in all the Avengers movies. She's had her own standalone movie.
You're speaking Greek to me right now. The only I think I told you I had a thing with our boy Malik. This the only Marvel movie I think I've seen was the original Spider-Man in 2002, and I was told that wasn't even a proper Marvel movie.
It's
He was
not.
yelling at me. He's like, "That's Marvel property, but it's not MCU." I'm like, What are you
Right.
talking about? I saw Spider-Man on a movie in 2002 with Tobey Maguire. That much I know. All this other stuff you're saying is like Greek to me. I never even heard of it. So But I have heard the name of. I thought she was in Star Wars. She's not in Star Wars. Scarlett Johansson.
No, no, she was
Okay.
not in Star Wars.
Who was in Star Wars? There's
A
no.
lot of people were in Star
No, there was
Wars.
a
What do you
woman,
mean?
Princess Leia. Who was that?
Like Carrie Fisher.
No, no, more recent.
Carrie Fisher has been Princess Leia.
Nah,
There is
someone
no
else.
other Princess Leia
Well, name some actresses
except for the
that were
child.
that were in Star Wars. No, 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 famous, like really famous megastar actresses. There was one of them recent. I'm pretty sure that was in Star Wars. I
Um,
thought it was Scarlett Johansson, but uh,
no, she was not.
let's ask the phone because now I'm curious.
No, there is no. I mean, Daisy Ridley was in the
No,
new, but she's not megastar.
no,
Like,
no, it was a megastar.
no, there is
Who was
someone
Princess
else.
Leia on Star Wars?
Carrie Fisher. It's insulting that you think that I wouldn't know that.
There's a megastar who played her. I can't think of the name now. I never heard of Carrie Fisher.
God, Jesus Christ.
Carrie Fisher is from the '60s, right? Or no?
Probably. She passed a couple of
Sounds
years
like
ago.
it sounds like an older actress's name. It doesn't sound like a new one, like that you would hear today. This is a new one. Anyway, we'll get to
Yeah,
it.
she was.
Anyway, I was reading the history because I was curious. Why did Scarlett Johansson give money to Scott Stringer? Right, that seemed kind of funny. So I was reading. Apparently, she has a twin brother. Okay, you might know more about this than me. She has a twin brother who worked for him back in the day. I think when he was in the assembly or when he was Manhattan Borough president, or something like that. And then it even talked about her mother was an activist in New York City, and her mother knew him, Scott Stringer, when he was a staffer for a congressman who was just in the assembly back then. So we're talking many, many years ago, right? Maybe 50 years ago, maybe less than that. I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, whatever it was. But she has a personal, I guess, family connection to Scott Stringer. And so she has
Right.
a history of donating money to his campaigns. And so I found that to be kind of fascinating.
I don't know anything about her family or her siblings. But
Yeah.
that makes sense. That she's got a personal connection.
Then you've got State Senator Zelnor Myrie. You've got Senator Jessica Ramos at the bottom of the list here, but she is saying that she just got into the race, so her numbers aren't going to reflect her true strength at this point. She's saying she is raising a lot. Maybe at the next period, she'll be able to show more. It's kind of unfortunate, right, that everyone looks at how much money candidates have. I think a lot of people don't understand why that is or why that should be. You know what I mean? I've dealt with this perception, this attitude myself in the past when I was trying to raise money to become a viable candidate to run for something. Uh, People, I don't know if they truly understand why you need money to run a campaign, and they don't know why it should matter, right? And a lot of people will say, well, I don't vote for someone based on how much money they have in the bank. And that's true. People usually don't, right? But I think it matters more when it comes to which groups are going to support you, right? Like I said,
Right.
unions, the parties, other elected officials, the press, how the press covers you, right? You
Right.
emerge as a more viable candidate, and then it kind of creates this perception that you're more serious and the other ones aren't, right? It's, everyone is so, I guess, hungry to see who has the advantage in the campaign, right? People are political junkies, right? So they want to know before the election day, obviously before even polls, or sometimes there are no polls, as soon as possible, they want to know what data can we look at to see who might have a lead, who's doing better than who else. So that's really kind of an early barometer to determine someone's
Right.
strength, right? And then, like I said, people start rallying behind those candidates. It's like a horse race, right? They're trying to bet on the winner at that point. So
Right.
you do need to raise money to be a viable candidate. I met someone not long ago who was telling me that they wanted to run for city council here in New York. What what to do? They were a political novice. They're like, what should I do
Right.
to become a serious candidate for city council? And I said, honestly, you should start a bank, open a bank account, open your committee with the CFB, and start raising money. And they didn't want to hear that. And I was like, well, it's just the reality of, I don't like it either.
What do they want to hear?
They thought that they could win without doing any fundraising. And
A tough battle.
yeah, it's not feasible. Maybe that's possible for a very, very small election in some other parts of the country, right? And to be fair, even in New York City, if you talk about something like maybe county committee or something very, very, very small, but city council, New York City Council, people underestimate that. That's kind of like running for Congress in most of the country. It's a six-figure operation, right? So you're going to come in just walking down a block handing out flyers. It's not going to work. And I was trying to tell them, listen, I know it's disheartening to hear, but when you're going to be meeting with people about people supporting your campaign, the first question they're going to ask you is how much money do you have raised and have you maxed out yet? That's a big thing because with the matching funds, have you gotten the maximum amount of matching funds that you can possibly get? That's called maxing out. So they'll ask you that. Have you maxed out yet? No. When are you going to max out? January? All right, come back in January when you've maxed out, then we'll talk again. That's how they talk to you, right? Again, I don't like that that's how our system is. And I think money has too much influence in our politics. But the matching fund system is designed to reduce the influence of big money because it allows you to get smaller donations from people and be matched by the city, right? So I was telling this person, listen, you can with the matching funds program, it's doable, but it's a lot of work. It's also a way to ensure that a candidate running has adequate support from the community because to qualify for matching funds, you need 75 people from the district to give you money. Now that sounds scary to someone who never even dipped their toe into the political pool, right? They're like, there's no way. But if that's what you're thinking, then you're not ready to run for that seat. That's just the reality of it, right? You've got to be able to get there. You've got to make those connections. So, maybe
be willing to try to get there.
Yeah. So maybe it was a matter of even, walking before crawling in a sense that they couldn't even fathom getting 75 people to donate because they didn't know 75 people in the district who would give them money. Well, if you don't know those people yet, then you need to be making those connections and getting your network, getting out there more, right? And working towards that, right? But it's not a matter of saying, well, I'm going to run tomorrow. Everyone vote for me. Here's my flyer. And this person was a lawyer also, and I said, they're asking why do you need money? I said because if you don't have any money, but the other candidates do. Let's say you go into you're running for city council now. You've got no money. You just said, I'm not going to raise any money. It's just me and my home printer, right? I'm printing out some flyers on black and white paper and hand them out on the block. All right.
That still costs a little bit of money.
Yeah, it still costs a little bit of money, but all right, you can self-finance that. You can handle that. So your opponents now are coming in with hundreds of thousands of dollars, six-figure budgets. And they're going to have armies of people knocking on all the doors in the district, making the phone calls, doing the mail, right? Doing the campaign, all the campaigning, maybe even ads on TV. Shout out to Stacey Pfeffer Amato. You see her commercials on TV all over the place now, right? These are commercials on that TV. Very expensive to buy commercials on TV in New York City, right? Maybe you're doing digital marketing, still costs money. Whatever you do, all the stuff costs money. Maybe you're opening up a campaign office, as many campaigns do, right? The rent in New York City is very high. All the stuff costs money. So I said to her, you're going to be up against an army of people now who are well financed and well backed. And this is you. And you said you don't even know 75 people who can help you. This is really just you and maybe some of your friends. And their response was, well, I'm a lawyer and I've beaten armies of lawyers in court before, in divorce court. I've beaten them all. I'm like, all right, well, do what you do. Good luck with that. But you're asking me for advice on how you can be a viable candidate. And I'm telling you, right? And so I did introduce this person to some people because it wasn't my district, it was a neighboring district. So I introduced them to some people in that district that I knew, civic leaders and so forth. And I said, look, talk to them, ask them what it would take to get their support to be their next council member. And I think they were disillusioned pretty quickly because I think they realized when they spoke to other people, they were told the same thing from them. If you want to be serious as a candidate, you have to show you can raise money. And bottom line here is that some people don't want to hear that, right? Right. Be able to do it without it. And I get it. It sucks. I hate, and I think any normal person is going to hate spending 8 hours a day on the phone, calling people, essentially begging them for money. That's what the job is of a candidate. It's a major sacrifice. It's not fun. Unless you're a sociopath, honestly, that's not something anyone's going to enjoy doing. You're not going to enjoy doing that. But you have to do it. You have to swallow your pride and do it for the sake of the greater good, what you're trying to achieve, right? And I guess it does become a little bit of a litmus test or like a barrier you have to be able to show that you can get over to prove that you're serious.
Right. We had a question in the comments.
All right.
Asking who gives the money for matching funds? Where does it come from? And I think that's people probably it's a good question. I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. Like, how does that money come about?
So it depends obviously on what level seat you're running for. If you're running for a city level seat, like we're talking about here, the mayor or city council, for example, it comes from the city. There's a city agency called the Campaign Finance Board. It's a New York City agency. It's taxpayer money. It's taxpayer funded money. Um, Once you meet those thresholds, like we said for city council, you have to get 75 people in your district, and you have to raise a certain amount of money total. I believe it's 1,000. I forget now if it's 1,000 or $5,000 total in matchable contribution. But you have to meet certain thresholds. And once you meet those thresholds and you report, you document everything. And the CFP is very, very strict on documenting every dollar, every penny that comes in, right? And they'll ask you for all kinds of stuff. They'll go back and forth with you for years. But if all your paperwork is in order, then you get a check, or really it's a direct deposit from the city into your campaign account. And it's taxpayer money used to run your campaign. But after you get the money, you still have to document everything that you do with it, every cent that you, and so you have to have copies of all the checks that come in and out. You have to have your bank statements. You have to have your deposit slips. You have to have your receipts from the vendors, your invoices, and they'll ask you for everything, right? And like I said, some people are not happy with how long this process goes on, because you open up an account to run for office and you end up getting scrutinized by the city for years to come, years. And it's crazy, audit after audit after audit. And they'll do like a first draft audit, preliminary audit. This is what we looked at from your reporting. It looks like we're missing this, this, and this. Even if sometimes it's not missing, them, I think it's missing, whatever it is. Maybe you see things differently. You say you provided it, they say it's not good enough. They sometimes they don't read your deposit slip the right way. Whatever it is, they'll come back with all the stuff they want from you. Sometimes then it's hard to get it right, because now if it's months or years later, sometimes the bank doesn't even have those old records, or if they do, you have to ask for them and wait for them to come. And it goes back and forth. Like you'll give your response, and then maybe 5 or 6 months later they come back and they're like, all right, cool, you responded, but we're still not completely satisfied, or we forgot to mention last time this thing now, or whatever. Like it'll always be something else that'll come up. Some people are cynical about that. Some people think that they're doing that as a way to discourage you, or to go after people that aren't in the in crowd. For example, are they going to do that kind of thing to Adam? Some people might be cynical about that. I think, oh, here comes the CFB being weaponized against a candidate or against a campaign to try to put a lot of heat on them, put a lot of pressure on them to either not give them the matching funds or to fine them. They're also known for that. I have to say this, and this is knock on wood, I have not been fined by the CFB, but I understand that many campaigns are. Many, and there are people, I know, I'm not going to say names, but I know people who have been paying off these fines for years, and they've gone on to run for other offices, and they get a paycheck for being in office now, and money comes out of their paycheck every time to pay back the fines that they owe to the CFB from when they were in the city council or when they were in another office like a decade ago now, or whatever it is. So there are people not happy with that whole system.
Right.
I think
And part of it is,
I think is a side effect of the matching funds being there, because like we said, it's taxpayer money.
that's what I was gonna say. It's taxpayer money. You have to I think if there wasn't that kind of oversight, people would be very upset at just money being handed out to candidates, taxpayer money being handed out to candidates.
Right. And I do think there needs to be at least a barrier to entry, for lack of a better term, right? It's not to gatekeep, but you don't want to create a situation where anyone who just declares himself a candidate automatically gets matching funds money. Because some people have suggested that, like, let's make it a system where anyone who says that they're running for the seat automatically gets $300,000.
Right.
I would have my concerns about that. I think that's subject to abuse.
Very much so.
Yeah,
Very,
and you start thinking about let's recruit 10 of our friends to all say that they're running, so now we get $3 million and we can spend it on really just attacking the one candidate that we think poses a threat to the one that we're really trying to run. You know what I mean? Like there are
right.
things you can manipulate with a system like that, where if you have the system where you need the 75 people to give you money, you have to raise a certain amount to get there. It at least creates a barrier to kind of weed out unserious candidates.
Right.
You know,
Yep. But
all the
that's
scrutiny though, you know what? There are reforms that I think would do well. Like I think maybe they should be using actual accountants as auditors. I think that might help, because I noticed like sometimes I would get a report back saying your deposit slip doesn't represent the amount of money you reported depositing into the bank. And I'll say, yes, it does. You just don't know how to read a deposit slip. Sometimes on a deposit slip, it'll have different amounts on it. And it'll be like basically when you deposit a check, right? It'll say like basically, this amount is available now. This amount will be available
Right.
in 5 days and 7 days, whatever it is, and have different amounts. Sometimes they'll be reading the wrong amount and then saying that we did something wrong. Like little things like that. It's like, come on, you're going to scrutinize, at least try to have your stuff together so that you're not threatening. Because what you're doing is you're basically threatening to fine people for your own,
Right. Right.
And something I'll say really quickly about this also before we move on. I think this might be a coincidence now thinking back at it, but it was suspicious to me at the time. I announced that I was suing the city at one point, right? We did a press conference, and it wasn't for money. We were suing them to enforce or to compel the city agency to enforce the rules at a housing co-op, right? The argument was that the city agency was dropping the ball. They were supposed to provide oversight over this housing co-op in Rockaway, and they weren't doing it. So we were going to sue the city to compel for the court to compel the city to do what it was supposed to do in terms of oversight at this housing co-op. Well, we had this press conference, and I was the lawyer on the case, right? I was there giving my speech about how the city wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing, and this is about we have no choice now about to file a lawsuit. I mentioned how I was arguing with the New York City attorneys about the lawsuit, and they didn't like that I was following this injunction and whatever. So I do this whole press conference, right? I come back from the press conference that night. I check my email, and there's a notice from the New York City Campaign Finance Board that my campaign is under investigation or something like that for I don't know, something with the audit, with the matching funds, right? And I think what there was this is what it was. It was a notice saying that we've audited your campaign, and we've concluded that you owe the city matching funds back. And of course, the problem with this is if you've already spent the matching funds and you owe them back, now you got to come up with that money. You can't get matching funds to pay off your matching fund debt. You have to raise it privately now. And so if the city gave you over $100,000 in matching funds and they're telling you we want that money back and you've already spent that on your campaign, now it's up to you to come up with over $100,000 yourself to try to pay that back, right? And so what was crazy about it, aside from the timing of it, right, was I went through the report that they sent me, and I said, you guys are wrong. What are you talking about? I went line by line through the report and said, actually, if you do the math here, line by line, you owe us more money. We don't owe you money. And so I sent them back a response with my line by line analysis of what they were saying. And then they came back with it like, oh, yeah, you're right. My bad, basically. You don't owe us money. Oops, forget we sent that. But at the time, I was like, man, I try not to be cynical about things, but on the day that I announced I'm suing the city, I get a notice from them saying that I owe them matching funds money back. And it's not even legit, right? Because when I go through it, it's actually not true. They actually owe me more money. So,
this is a warning. This is a warning, sir. We're watching you.
Some might read that, right? That this was done deliberately. I can see that.
See what you're doing. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did they give you the money that they owed you? The extra money?
No, because the campaign was over. So you could only use matching funds for campaign related purposes. And so basically I was saying is like we should have gotten more money from you. That you didn't overpay us. They were saying that they overpaid us or something like that. I'm like, no, you underpaid us, really. So so crazy stuff. And this is a big reason, by the way, why a lot of people hesitate to even explore running for office seriously, right? Because if you're thinking about running for office, let's say next year, like these candidates for mayor are, they're raising money now, and you have to show that you can raise enough money to be in the game, right? Have people take you seriously. And so whether you decide to run or not, at the end of the day, you start off by opening up your account and raising money. But what does that do? That puts you before the CFB, and it subjects you to years of scrutiny, whether or not you run, right? And this happened to us last year. We were considering running. People were asking us to run. So we opened up the account. We took the steps that you would need to take in preparation for a campaign in case one were to materialize, right? And that's when the media falsely reported that I was in the race and I dropped out. Meanwhile, I never announced I was running. I was very transparent that I was raising money ahead of a possible run for office because people were asking me if I would run. And so I was just doing my due diligence, right? Taking steps necessary in advance of that. Well, we decided not to run last year, as people know. So I had to close the account and handle all that. But it still subjected me to
Right.
ongoing scrutiny from the CFB about a campaign that never was, right? And so people hesitate. I know people who have run for office before who say, I've thought about running again, but I don't want to deal with the CFB again. That was a nightmare. You do hear that. Luckily, like I said, we have not been fined, but a lot of people, a lot of good people who I don't think were doing anything uh, wrong on purpose. I think maybe according to the CFB, they didn't, cross their T's or dot their I's enough, and were hit with fines over it. So
Right.
it's,
Sounds like you got a tab open over there.
no, you know what it is? I should probably take this out. It's my flash drive. I've got it in because this is a whole other thing. But when I edit videos on CapCut, it wants you to have a lot of space on your computer. And I've been trying to delete files off my computer, but I keep getting warnings that I don't have enough space on my computer. So I put the flash drive in with 128 gigs so that it sees that extra space and doesn't give me that warning. But every so often, the flash drive will open up the folder, and I gotta close it. It's like automatically. Like I guess it rediscovers it in the USB drive. Like it's like, oh, flash drive, and it opens it up. So yeah.
All
So
right.
anyway, that was our discussion on campaign finance.
Right.
I think that there are reforms needed, but we understand why there is so much scrutiny put on candidates. Mayor Adams, for example, being accused of abusing this very system. So
Right.
we do want to make sure that people that are in positions of power, right, positions of authority for us, are held to that standard.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All
And
right. Well,
speaking of someone in a position of power,
yes, being held or not being held to a standard, right? We've got the biting. You could even make a hip hop reference here, but it's a different kind of biting, right? Because biting,
different kind of biting. This is a theme
yeah,
right now.
biting is strictly prohibited in hip hop. But this was a council member who allegedly bit a cop, literally.
Right. Yeah. Not
And
and not bit his bars. Like let's just bit
right,
him.
right.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's
so
a
it wasn't the hip hop cop. It wasn't biting the bars.
right. Susan Jang.
Yes. Now here's fun. If you
Talk
read
about
this is in the city. If you read I gotta take this. Here's the thing. We unplugged it. No more bing bing bing. All right. If you take the look at this article, right? Supporters cheer as council member who
you
bit
just
cop.
pulled it. You just pulled it out without ejecting it.
I'm not on an Apple. We don't eject things here. We just pull things out.
No, yeah, but you can corrupt the data anyway.
I believe that only applies to Apple. Anyway, if you read the text under the headline, it says
Yeah.
anybody would do it. One supporter said Brooklyn City Council member Susan Jang, who was at a protest against the homeless shelter when she allegedly bit an NYPD officer. That's funny to me. Anybody would do it. Anybody would bite that cop.
Anybody? Yeah, and in we talked about this before, that it was a serious bite. It wasn't a small bite.
Right.
But she's saying, I guess, she was either protecting someone or it was the cop was like handling her, and so this was her uh either self-defense or whatever it was in her mind. Um, it stemmed from a scuffle over a protest of a homeless shelter being put in the district that she represents.
Right. So she pled not guilty to second degree assault and other charges. And she was in and out of the courtroom within minutes. Her case adjourned until January. But as she was leaving the courthouse, she was greeted by supporters, I guess, from her district. And you see the signs that they got here? Can we put this on the screen? Or but this
Yeah, the
article,
equal
stand with
justice
Susan Strong, equal justice. Yeah. Now see this. You got
doesn't make
the
sense.
flags. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this? Because this seems a little orchestrated to me.
Yeah, like what is this equal justice for? Like what is she equal justice? Like is someone else bitten cops and been treated differently? Like I don't get what the point is of this. Um Now I can see stand with.
Right.
that makes sense in the context of these signs, but this equal justice for Susan Jang doesn't make sense at all to me.
Equal justice. So I guess what they're saying is that she's being treated unfairly.
That's what it sounds like, but
So, and
a police
I'm sure there's,
officer.
again, this is like we talked about before, the missing context, and sometimes you make judgments based on something that doesn't give the full context. Maybe there was another council member or another elected official,
That bit of cop.
maybe didn't bite a cop, but maybe wasn't subjected to the same kind of scrutiny, maybe in their view.
Could be. So the people she's her support, well, I mean, supporters, of course, are going to support, but there were people commenting here that she's our hero. She's fighting the city, so we support her. I think it's not fair. And it doesn't, maybe what she's fighting against is not fair, but I don't think her treatment here seems to be unfair. You know, um,
Well, yeah, it seems like they're saying that she did this in the defense, not self-defense, but defense of someone else who was being
right.
mistreated, right?
And that could be like, well, supposedly what she had said or what was came out was that um she was supposedly grabbed. There was an elderly woman that was trapped laying on the ground under a police barricade, and protesters were trying to help her up. And then that's when the confrontation happened between Juong and the cop. So she said she was grabbed by the police officer's neck, which I guess then is what prompted the bite or whatnot. However, there was a video that showed that she bit the officer before he touched her neck.
Mm.
And this was so the video doesn't match up to what her account was. However, they haven't made any kind of statements, her lawyer or anything on any of the new stuff here or any of this article, so it's going to have to come out in court, obviously.
Yeah, it says here that she's a conservative Democrat who ran on a platform almost identical to that of her Republican counterpart last fall.
Mm.
An ardent supporter of the police, critic of bail reform. Okay. Then you scroll down and it says several left leaning council members said it would be hard to imagine them getting a similar reception from Adams, a former police officer, an ardent defender of the NYPD. So they're saying, why are they mentioning Adams? Oh, she had a personal meeting with Eric Adams, apparently. So I guess they're saying that some of the more progressive council members are saying that if they were in this position, if they allegedly attacked a cop, Mayor Adams wouldn't be giving them that same
Right.
treatment.
Right. And in that case, like, um, equal justice, maybe
Oh yeah,
they're
so
not
they're
happy
not
that she's getting, maybe they're not happy that she's getting a meeting with the mayor.
right, but see, I don't think her supporters are viewing it as she is being given preferential treatment. I think
Right.
they're saying that she's being unfairly targeted.
Right.
Maybe the indictment, right? The fact that they're going after her in court is unfair. Maybe that's what they're suggesting here, that they're going after her because of her politics, whereas the progressive members are basically saying the opposite. They're saying that they're going easy on her because of her politics.
Yeah, it just doesn't the slogan doesn't even match up. Just equal justice for Susan Juong. Like it doesn't match up because it's like, you know, from what we're seeing, it doesn't seem like anything is being done extra that would happen to anyone else if they or did the same thing, right? If you bit the cop and then
It
I mean,
seems,
like
yeah, it
I
seems like
don't get
they're suggesting that she's only really being prosecuted this way because she protested but the weird thing about this is that they say that she's very pro cop, so it's not like they're saying, well, she's so anti
right,
cop and the cops are coming down on her. Because if you look at this quote here from one of her supporters, she says, I think the police are making a big deal of this. She's our hero to fight with the city, so we are here to support her. And I think it's not fair. It's not fair. So the
Right.
sentiment here is that she's being persecuted for having the guts to fight against the city.
Right. Another comment was anybody would do it. Me, if the police did this also, I fight it. Anybody would have that action. This is why Susan is right.
Yeah. So they seem to be saying that she's being treated harshly because she stood up to the city about the homeless shelter.
Right. But I think part of it is also this the idea that um she was supposedly protecting an elderly woman that was trapped underneath the police barricade,
Yeah.
and the police were not, at least in that account, it seems like, or they're trying to get across, is that the police were kind of out of control. She's trying to protect this elderly woman. A lot of people were trying to help her up, and then the police came in and got aggressive, and we've seen that type of stuff happen before. However, it does look like from the video that that's not what happened in this situation.
Mm. Yeah.
So,
I mean, people put a spin on things based on the way they see,
right,
the way they want the narrative to look, right? I mean, like I was
right,
saying before, this could all be orchestrated by her office or her political team, for all we know. These signs, they're all, if you notice, it's not like people brought their own signs here. These signs are all the same color.
exactly the same.
Yeah, that's right. The same photo is used on them, just the words are a little bit different, but it's just a few
Right.
versions of the same sign here. And so obviously,
Now
someone
this,
made them and handed them out. Maybe it's not an organic display of support. Maybe this is a narrative that someone is deliberately trying to create.
I think it gives off that impression, and it makes it seem like they're trying to elevate this to some sort of, like I said, an equality movement to maybe garner more support or whatnot. But it just doesn't hit the mark for me. It doesn't meet the standard of what is inequality, injustice
But
here.
you know what? We can invite someone on the show who was there. I don't know if he's going to come on the show to talk about it or not, but I can extend the invitation
Right,
because I do happen to know this guy personally, and I can ask if because I'm sure he'll at least have ideas if he's willing to speak about it about what they mean by equal justice for why they perceive this as being inequitable, especially when
right.
you have, like we said, the more progressive council member is saying that she's being treated too kindly. And if they did that, they wouldn't be. So I guess when it comes to the mayor, what they're saying, the mayor wouldn't be nice to them because they're perceived as anti-police, I suppose, whereas she's looked at as pro-police.
Right, right. So, yeah, well, I mean, we'll see what it is. But
Yeah.
again, it's still allegedly at this point. We did see the bite mark. I don't know if there's actual footage of showing
Somebody, you're right.
exclusively
Somebody bit this officer.
somebody bit that officer
Yeah.
and bit him hard because yeah, it wasn't a love bite.
So yeah, I saw recently the interview Angie Martinez did with some, who was it? But she was talking about the R. Kelly incident at MSG where I guess Jay Z's cousin was it, where someone allegedly maced R. Kelly,
Right.
and so they were saying, oh, so it's true that they did mace him, and she was like, well, he was here in the studio after that happened. Somebody pepper sprayed him. I can tell you that because you can see it in his face.
Right.
Yeah. So we know the cop was bit, but we'll have to see
Yeah.
if she's convicted, as being the one to do it, and also if her legal defenses, like we mentioned, survive scrutiny. Because a big part of this case is going to be, even if she's convicted, is it going to be a felony conviction or a misdemeanor conviction, right? Because if it's a felony conviction, she would automatically lose her seat on the city council.
Right. So,
So, yeah,
well,
stay
we'll see.
tuned. Stay tuned on that one. Before we wrap up, I know we did a poll last week, right?
Yes, we had a poll last week. There was a Twitter thread that went viral. Um, there was at least 153,000 likes on this thread where a father had took to Twitter to complain that his daughter's homework was inappropriate because they said, I'm less than pleased you're using English class to slip in LGBTQ activism.
Hmm.
And what it was a grammar assignment where students were asked to place punctuation in the correct place or identify how to change the run-on sentence. And the article that they used was an article, a profile of uh, a notable civil rights icon and LGBTQ activist, Bayard Rustin, but that wasn't the focus of it. The focus was about grammar. And so we asked, do you agree with the father's objection to an LGBTQ article being used in an English lesson? Now, we got a lot of votes on this. We got a lot of votes,
Okay. How
which
many
is
votes?
good. We got almost 200 votes
Okay.
on this.
I
And
would imagine most people did not side with the father here.
you would be right. 92% didn't side with the father. 8% did.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was overwhelmingly against the father, but there was definitely some comments.
Okay.
Um, so one person was saying, ninth grade the first year in traditional four-year school? This might be a bit young to be using something which could generate such controversy. So we kind of talked about that last week. One of the comments from the Instagram Live brought that up about why would they use something that they know might be controversial in school.
Hmm.
Um, so that was one
And I
point.
think that opens the door to a discussion on what is controversial versus what should be and shouldn't be controversial.
Right,
That we
exactly.
tolerate something being controversial if we don't think it should be. I
Right,
understand that that's a nuanced discussion, right? Because
right,
we know that this controversy is very much a mainstream controversy. So it isn't something that's on the fringes of society, though we believe it should be, probably. It is something that many people are espousing, right? I mean, a major part of
right,
the nominee for president is using that language in his ads. And so
right,
it is there, it's here, right? And so I'm not sure burying our heads in the sand and acting like that doesn't exist is productive because some people were upset we even asked the question, right? Why are you even making this an issue? Because it is an issue.
right,
And people are, it is an issue, whether we like it or not. It's something that
right,
a lot of people are talking about. And if you look at my
right.
comments on my Facebook, you saw many people saying that that was inappropriate for
Yeah,
school,
yeah,
for
yeah.
ninth grader, for ninth grade English lesson, whatever. People were saying that, right? And so uh,
Now, I don't think it should be an issue.
yeah,
It
we
very
disagree. We disagree with that view that people are expressing on this.
right.
And to be clear,
I
it's a
showed
minority, right? Because, like we said in our poll, 92% also, but you still did see a sizable amount of people expressing this.
right. And I showed an example
Yeah,
of the assignment because it was really benign. It really wasn't
all right.
like pushing this type of thing. However, Um, this comment here is saying introducing this type of literature to someone coming out of grammar school from a household which might be pretty sheltered in the first month of the new school year is probably going to generate some pushback by parents. Another person was saying, I'd say using something more neutral would be sensible, or let the teacher write their own grammatically flawed example to be corrected.
See, this is also a problem when basic human rights become politicized
Right.
so much because
Yes.
now it's a matter of, oh, you shouldn't be talking about political issues, whereas it
Right.
really shouldn't be a political issue, but it is. It's been made one, right?
Right.
And
It
so
shouldn't be
that's
an issue at
right,
all.
and that's what gets tricky about it. I disagree with those who are saying we shouldn't even be talking about this because it's very much a part of the discourse nationally. It's a
Right.
mainstream topic, and so if we want to move the needle on it, we have to talk about it. We have to be able to push back against what we perceive as bigotry, and also we have a duty, I think, of not assuming every concern that's raised is automatically bigoted, right?
Right.
And even if he's getting even more nuanced, even if maybe what they're saying has bigotry in it, they may not be realizing that. Maybe they're not a
Right.
bigot. Maybe they were misled somewhere, or they're
Right.
misconstruing something, or they're ignorant on something. And so I think we just have an obligation to have these discussions.
Absolutely.
Right, and say, hey, listen, this is something that's out there. Like you said, it went viral. It's a major part of our dialogue in a country. But
Right.
where are we going wrong here, and whose concerns are valid, and who's being, like we said last week, who's being intellectually dishonest. I think there's a lot of that going
Right.
on too, right?
There's a lot of that
I
going
think we really
on.
need to be getting to the bottom of all these discussions.
Right. comment by Happy Camper just came right out and said, F this guy, F his religious beliefs, F his bigotry and desire to erase the existence of people he disagrees with. If he doesn't like the lesson, let him pay for private church-run school that only teaches things that he approves
Yeah.
of.
Well, that was
I'm
part of the
tired of
discussion.
these. Oh, fine. I'm tired of these a-holes and their insistence their personal bigotry must guide education for the rest of us.
Well, harshly worded comment there, but we did have a
Oh,
discussion
yeah.
on this as well about, you know, this is public school. The Constitution says that you can't bring your private religion in terms of trying to influence or push religious values on someone, push them towards a religion or non-religion. That all has to be private. And so if your argument is, well, this goes against my personal religion, do you really have a leg to stand on when you're trying to say it shouldn't be in public schools? I mean,
Right.
legally speaking, constitutionally speaking, you're on the wrong side of this, right? And maybe to this commenter's point, your recourse is to do homeschool or send them to a private school, send them to a Christian school, whatever. But we're talking about the public school curriculum here. Your own religious beliefs aren't allowed to dictate what is taught at public schools.
Right. Another person here was saying that basically I agree there should be discussions about LGBT people. They exist. They're a part of America. They're a part of history. But I think a simple grammar exercise should keep it simple and stay out of the issues of the day.
Mm.
See, I don't think that that's the issue. Like, is this an issue? I guess it is an issue of the day, but this was not one about, this wasn't like pushing LGBT. This was like using an article about this civil rights
Right.
icon, historical figure. Um, and he just so happened to be openly gay in that time, but it wasn't like teaching about being gay. It was like, look at these sentences. And I remember we used all different types of things in school. It wasn't like, I don't think the teacher sat down and created a specific paragraph for that. You would use
Right.
writing that's out there. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, the thing here, like this is such a controversial issue is kind of even more crazy when you think about what you read in school, right? Romeo and Juliet. We did that in seventh or eighth grade. We did Romeo and Juliet. This is about double suicide, right? We did Of Mice and Men. This is straight up murder when they murdered
Yeah.
Lenny. Like there these topics are not
Right. And yeah, I was even thinking to that, if we're going to give people the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, their objection is that you shouldn't be bringing in anything that's an issue of the day, right?
right,
Anything controversial, anything in the news, like whatever, wherever they're going to put that. Yeah, I was thinking back to when I was in school. I do think we read about Bill Clinton when he was running for president, and it wasn't like in the context of you should tell your parents to vote for him, but it was
right.
here's a new guy on the national scene. What is his childhood like? And I think that was part of what we were reading. To be fair, we probably read about Bush also, but it wasn't like
Right.
contemporary issues were kept out of the classroom.
Right. And I put in the explainer in the article about this, would the reaction be the same if, for example, the article that they used was a profile about Robert E. Lee or about Jefferson Davis? Robert E. Lee was the lead general for the Confederate Army. Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederate States. And these are both historical figures, more traditionally acceptable in school curriculums, even though uh, these were very racist people that committed atrocities. Matter of fact, my elementary school was Jefferson Davis Elementary that I
Yeah,
went to. Like
yeah,
it's ridiculous.
yeah.
And
There was a Robert E. Lee school up until a few years ago in Virginia.
right, yeah, and it's like, would it be the same in that regard? This to me shows the father's bigotry or
Oh well, let's
ignorance.
stick with contemporary issues, right? If they're saying that, And I don't think that was his. The father wasn't talking about contemporary issues. The father was talking about we're a Christian family. We don't believe in this stuff, right? That's what he was saying.
Right. LGBT
But then you have
issues.
commenters here saying, for example, you shouldn't bring up anything that's in the news now, I guess, or anything that's an issue of the day, as they put it. So what if
Right.
it was? What if it was about abortion, either for or against?
Right.
With that would probably get pushed back too, I would imagine.
I would imagine it's a hot button topic, right? It's just the word itself, you know. I mean, what if it was a nuanced article or just a not one that's taking a side, just saying, okay, Roe v. Wade was the law of the land for this long. There was a court case, and then it was overturned, and they used that little snippet for the grammar piece. Like that would get pushback, but should it get pushback? It's
I
just
think it
state.
depends on how neutral it's presented. And to be
Well,
fair,
that was just stating the fact. It didn't say
right,
it was wrong
right.
that it was overturned, that it
No,
was
right,
wrong.
exactly. But an example you read last week, it did have some editorializing in it, right? Because it said, like we said, unfairly treated and things like that, right? And again, it shouldn't be controversial. No one should be unfairly treated, right? So
Right.
it shouldn't even be a thing. But it does present a viewpoint, I guess, right? It doesn't come off as just presenting the facts. It does put in some kind of editorializing in
Right. Now, one point that we did raise, and which could be a little bit more nuanced towards the father's
there. Mm.
point of view, was the possibility that the teacher could have selected this article specifically because this historical figure in question was in the LGBTQ community, and they wanted to put that out there, right? Or they wanted to have that type of stuff
Yeah,
in the
right,
curriculum.
right.
Now,
To be
speaking.
fair, it does seem likely that that is the case because they had a whole range of topics they could have chose, and that's the one that they picked.
Or, I mean, he wasn't just an LGBTQ activist. He was a civil rights icon and
Yeah.
one of the main architects of the
Oh, yeah,
March
yeah.
on Washington, which
Yeah,
that could be fun.
sure.
But I brought that up to
But the
say,
topic on the site said LGBTQ activism, right? That's what
right,
the father. Go ahead.
right. So I said that to say we had a comment in here. Um, from a professor. He said, as a gay college professor, I would intentionally pick LGBTQI texts and articles for my classes if they were appropriate to what was being taught. I don't think of it as pushing an agenda so much as self-expression.
Mm.
If every example I used were from LGBTQI sources, they weren't, it wouldn't come close to offsetting the oppressive heteronormativity foisted off on students. In my experience, teachers' lessons reflect their background, interests, and lived experience. It's sad that even allies are willing to pander to the sensitivities of insecure heterosexuals who can't stand any point of view except their own in a classroom.
Now he
So
said he was a college professor, right?
he said he's a college professor, he's a gay college professor, and he intentionally
Yeah.
picks LGBTQI text to use in his classrooms. So he doesn't see it as propaganda or pushing an agenda. But to the father's point of view, this could have been something specifically chosen to advocate or to put that in the discourse.
Mm-hmm.
And this college professor says that he does this sort of thing.
Right. But is there a
So
difference between doing it
does
at the
there a
college
point?
level and the high school level? At ninth grade, which is
Right.
really the beginning of high school. And in fact, when I was in ninth grade, I was still in middle school technically.
Right. So does the father have a little bit of a point that this might have been some sort of some sort of an indoctrination, so to speak.
But what are we saying? This is the question. Like, who's being indoctrinated and how by talking about equal rights? Like, that's the thing.
Right,
You know what I mean? What is the indoctrination?
right. Well, I mean, if, for example, in this gay college professor's course,
Yeah.
even though he's saying all of the material he used weren't from LGBT, but he would intentionally choose those. Let's say he did only those texts. So that means the students are getting a semester full of LGBTQ education or sourced material
Yeah.
for that whole time.
Again, are you saying this is a college class now? Because in college, you could also usually change out the class if you don't like it.
Right, right. So, but I mean, as far as when you're saying indoctrination, some people could see that as indoctrination. If all the material you're using is from
Oh,
this one specific uh area, then it's like, okay, you're trying to familiarize them with it.
but but there's a difference between familiarizing and indoctrinating, right? If all of my articles that I chose were about baseball, am I indoctrinating them about baseball? No, I'm using that as a teaching tool, right? Okay, and maybe in the process teaching them more about the subject of baseball while they're learning grammar or whatever else. Yeah, so
And
you do that as part
that
of the
could be
lesson,
fostering.
but is that indoctrination though?
If it's solely the material that they're being presented with, that could be fostering an interest in baseball that they wouldn't have before.
Is that indoctrination?
In a way,
Are you trying to force them to believe some kind of doctrine or adopt a certain viewpoint that
that baseball is like that is baseball is awesome.
baseball is awesome? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if I would consider that to be indoctrination. To me, indoctrination sounds a little bit more sinister. The connotation
Yeah, it does. It is.
indoctrination makes it seem like you're like it's propaganda, like you're trying to influence them in some kind of sinister way. Uh,
Right. And you know,
I guess I can kind of take the point, even if you take a step back and think of it in terms of left leaning versus right leaning materials, right?
well,
So yeah,
here's what
like
the father said.
if it was all democratic friendly sources, are you indoctrinating them to believe in democratic policies?
Right. So the father's initial post, he said that he described this as subtle attempts to inject a leftist agenda into a lesson without,
Mhm.
basically that was it.
Yeah.
We're watching you. Please be aware I'm watching, and if this becomes a trend, we're going to talk to the principal and superintendent. These are subtle attempts to inject a leftist agenda into a lesson. So, okay, could that be the same thing if the teacher is specifically choosing this LGBT backdrop, is
Mhm.
injecting this in this leftist agenda, so to speak?
I'm still kind of curious, I guess, as to what the leftist agenda is that they're accusing the teacher of pushing, right? Because they're just using, like we said, this as a backdrop. They're really teaching
Right.
history. It's history, and some people were saying, well, you should keep history to history class and English to English class. You shouldn't mix the two, but it's history.
But the write up is written in English, so it's still an
okay.
example of
Well,
English.
but I mean, everything pretty much that you can learn in school is in English. It doesn't mean that
Right.
it's that subject, you know.
So,
But still, I think, like we said last week, some cross discipline could be good, so people can see how these subjects interact with each other. So I don't know.
right.
I don't really see it as indoctrination. I'm
Your
trying to
leftist
look at it in
agenda.
terms of like maybe taking a political side, but again, if you're just teaching what happened, yes, there were some words in there that suggested it was pro a certain side because it was the articles written, right? Weren't they written by this activist? So it wasn't just an article
No,
about the
no, no.
activist.
No, the article wasn't written by the activist. This
Oh,
was just a profile about the
okay.
activist
But
and
then, okay, a profile about the activist, but it wasn't merely a historical perspective of what happened because it does insert some editorial or opinion language in there, right? Like we said, unfairly and things like that were put in there. So
in
if you're
one
trying to
case,
read into like, okay, they're trying to push the students to believe in a
yeah.
certain thing, I can see that just based on those words that were in there. If it was strictly, he got up, he went to the store, he did it. It's like if it's just factual accounts of what happened, then you're just teaching history. You're not really pushing a certain
Right.
right.
Yeah, but I think it was yeah, like I said, it to me it was very benign. It wasn't anything, and there were some of those things in there. Like one of the sentences that they had to correct, the sentence was, many people feared that Rustin's sexuality would cause problems for the civil rights movement. They disparaged him in public and spread harmful rumors.
Well,
Um,
that's more factual. I was going off one that you mentioned last week where they said he was unfairly
right.
treated and things like that. That seems
This one here. Some people did not want him to become leader of the march because of his sexuality, but he continued to work hard anyway.
again, that's just factual.
It's factual, but the anyway part does kind
Anyway, but
the
no,
anyway part does
in
kind of
spite,
assume, yeah,
well, I don't know. I think now we're really reading too deep into it. I think that's just
right,
saying, in spite of the efforts against him, he persisted. Factual.
right.
There was one
So
sentence in particular, and again, it's benign in the grand scheme of things, but if you're
I
trying to
think
be
so
very
too.
charitable to their side, there
I
was
think
one
so.
sentence in there that was about he was treated unfairly. It had some charged words in there where the author of it was espousing a certain viewpoint as opposed to presenting the facts.
Right. Someone saying being terrified that your child might read the word gay or be made aware of the existence of gay people seems weird. Methinks the lady doth protest too much. Who
Yeah, and
knows?
that goes back to my question about what agenda or what doctrine do you think they're really trying to push? And also, context matters, right? Because the father was complaining about this one lesson. What other lessons were taught? What if there were lessons
Right.
about people on the other side of the battle? What if there were
Oh
conservative
yeah.
people that you learned about in that class too? You know what I mean?
Right.
What if there's more balance than's being presented here?
Right. So, yeah.
Like I said, I think we learned about Clinton and Bush when I was in school. So and school should be a place for learning. If not school, where?
Yeah. Um, I think it's just, yeah, it's definitely overblown. And apparently 92% of the people agrees with our assessment that this is benign. This is nothing. This is just either the father's ignorance or bigotry or both.
Yeah, well, I
In a
see,
state of the polarization that we have in the
and
country right
that's
now.
what I was thinking of. We're so sensitive now, right? As a
Right.
people, as a society, that something that really should be benign, it's not even really worth caring about, becomes
Right.
so emotionally charged because we're putting it in the context of all these other battles that are being waged around us, right?
Right.
So if the political climate wasn't so crazy, you probably never would have seen something like this.
Right. I don't think so. If yeah, the climate, this is the not even just the social climate is so
Yeah.
charged with this polarization, this walking on eggshells or just this idea that everything is an agenda.
Right, right. Like
Like I don't
everything's a
think
conspiracy. That's the thing, right? It's like it's always
everything's a conspiracy. I
yeah,
don't think if this
they're
was
always out to get you somehow.
yeah, I don't think if even back, you go to the 90s or the 80s or 70s when being gay was something that you wouldn't even talk about
Mm-hmm.
and it was openly acceptable to make fun of gay people, to make fun of the lifestyle, to look down on it. I don't think this article would have caused a fuss in this exact same context in an English class even then.
Mm.
I don't think anyone would have batted an eye,
Right, right. It's
you
because
know?
people talk about again the agendas and all this kind of stuff now, and also
Yeah,
I think this is a more recent phenomenon where people on the right have this belief that the schools are
yeah,
not really there to teach your children, but they're there
right.
to turn them into leftist
Liberals.
liberal activists or whatever. Yeah.
Right. And before we wrap up, it is fair to say, in this guy's bio, he's got Christian, husband, father, abolitionist, horticulturist, artist, writer, conservative, MAGA, J6, which is an interesting,
Abolition. What does he want to abolish? Is the question. Public education, the government.
probably, but not I seriously doubt abolitionist in the term that most people use it as.
Right,
When
right.
we
Well,
think about abolitionists, we're talking about abolition of slavery, usually in historical context.
historically, but it's more recently in New York City, at least, it became known to mean abolishing the police.
Okay.
But I don't think this guy is probably, if we're going to profile the fellow, he's probably
No, no,
not one of
no.
these guys. So yeah, it's interesting.
It's got an interesting, he's obviously, yeah. No time for people who judge based on skin color anti-Semites.
This is what he says.
This was in his extended bio.
I mean, he seems to be doing some judging here. And maybe homeschooling is appropriate if that's. I hate to subject his kids to that, probably, but
Yeah.
as the parent, that may be his recourse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
so that's
So
that's what it is.
I think we kind of have a bottom line. We seem to be going back to this notion of context tonight, right? And maybe a side effect of the world we live in now is that everything is boiled down to these easily digestible, sound bites or clips. Maybe it's easier for us, it's more convenient for us. We like it. We like the doom
Right.
scroll, as they call it. Maybe we have so much information that we're being hit with now that it's just where we landed as a society that you gotta give it to me now, give me the elevator pitch, boil it down to something very easy for me so I can know what it is in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Convenience, maybe, but what is the side effect to that? I think context gets lost. The big picture can get lost, right? And it prevents us from zooming out and really taking a step back and seeing what's really going on and getting a bird's eye view. We're so zoomed in, right? We're so focused on the small piece, we can't see the big picture. So.
Sounds good. Excellent, excellent bottom line. I do have one last question before we go. What is up with the purple cup in your hand? You've been holding it the whole time.
Drank is it dry? I don't know. I wanted to say drank or something, trying to sound like one of those, but no, it's just water.
You sipping syrup over
Yeah,
there.
right.
So, and everyone can find us on YouTube and everywhere podcasts are available, and here on Tuesdays, 7 p.m.
Yes, yes. And if you are purposely trying to steer the conversation away from context for the purpose of furthering your own narrow-sighted agenda, you get the rubber chicken of the week.
Agreed.
As always, we've got work to do. Catch you next time.